Okay, so here's what we're going to do for reteaching this time. We are going to fill out this chart together. You have one in front of you. I have one right here. And I'm going to give you important things that you need to know about solving problems using decimals and fractions. And you're going to write these things down, and then you're going to solve sample problems, okay? So the way for you to be okay to take your retake is to show me the answers to the problems that you solve, and then you are going to have the right answers to be able to take your retake. So to start, important thing to know about adding fractions is common denominators, okay? You have to have common denominators in order to add fractions, right? Obviously, don't write as big as me because you're going to need more space to solve your problems. So using common denominators, I want you to solve the problem 1/3 plus 5/6. Okay, solve your problem, show work on the paper if you need to, but pause this video until you've solved the problem. Once you've solved the problem, you may move on. Okay, important things about adding decimals is we have to line up the decimal points. Right? So this is only for adding decimals. So if I'm going to add 3 6/10 plus 9 1/10, I need to be sure that when I add them together, I'm lining up my decimal points. Okay, so go ahead and solve that one and pause your video while you solve it. As soon as you're finished solving it, you may push play and move on. Now, just like subtracting, when I subtract fractions, I also need common denominators. All right, so the rules are the same for adding and subtracting fractions. All right, now using common denominators, I want you to go ahead and subtract the fractions 5/7 minus 1/2. Please remember to get yourself common denominators. When you have finished solving that, remember to write down your answer, pause the video while you solve it, and you can hit play when you are finished. Subtracting decimals is the same as adding decimals. The main thing here is we want to line up our decimal points again. Okay, so the problem I want you to solve this time is 14 minus 1.07. Now be careful here because 14 doesn't have a decimal point in it that we can see. So that means the decimal point is at the back. So I'm going to have to add 2 decimal points to it. 1.07 lines up that way. All right. Be sure that if you have whole numbers that don't have a decimal point just visibly, you can't see it, that you're adding those extra spots if you need them. So pause the video, solve the problem. You may push play when you are finished. Now we're going to go to multiplying fractions. Now remember, with multiplying fractions, all you do is multiply straight across. All right, I don't need common denominators, okay? No common denominators here. None, none, none. You do not have to find them when you multiply. So for this one, I want you to multiply 3/8 times 1 4/5. Remember to turn your mixed number into an improper fraction first, and then multiply straight across and simplify. Pause the video to solve your problem. When you're finished, you may push play and move on. When I'm multiplying decimals, okay, this is important because it's not like adding and subtracting where I line up the decimal point. Here, I line up the numbers. Okay, I line up the numbers in my problem. So, for example, I'm going to have you solve this one. 9 times 0.63. Now remember, you do not want to line up decimal points, so don't line up the decimal point behind the 9. We want to line up whole numbers. So I have 0.63 times 9, okay? That's what I want you to solve. And the last thing you have to remember is to count decimal places to know where your decimal goes in your answer. Okay, so go ahead and solve this problem right here. 0.63 times 9. Pause the video so you can solve it, and you may press play when you're ready to move on. Okay, dividing fractions, same thing. No common denominators here. Don't have to find them. Remember, here's where we KFC. All right, so I'm going to keep, flip, change. All right, that's what KFC stands for. So if I have the problem 1 and 1/7 divided by 3/14, right? Remember, no common denominator. I don't have to find that common denominator, but I need to keep this guy, flip this guy, and change that guy to multiplication. Okay, so go ahead and solve that problem. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, and change your division to multiplication. Pause the video so you can solve the problem. When you're finished, you may push play and move on. Okay, our last thing we're going to talk about is dividing decimals. Now, the first thing you have to remember is move the decimal in the second number to the back. All right, so I have to take my second number and move the decimal all the way to the back. Then I have to move the decimal in my first number the same number of times. Okay, so I'm not trying to move it so it's at the back. I'm only trying to move it the same number of times. So if I have the problem 450 divided by 4.5, I have to take this decimal point here and move it once. All right, that gets it at the back. Then in 450, my decimal point is way back here. I have to move it once, but I don't have anywhere to go with it. Okay, so I have to move it once, move it once. What do I put in that empty loop? I put a 0. Okay, so my new problem is going to be 4,500 divided by 45. So you can rewrite it, 4,500 divided by 45, and solve that problem. When you are finished, you may get out of this video and come show your filled in worksheet with your problem solved correctly to Ms. Schmidt or Ms. Anderson. We would love to check it over, and if it checks out with us, you will be able to get stamped to do a retake for your Chapter 1 test during win time.